Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. It is August 27th, and I am delighted that you have found me. I just want to take a quick moment to just let you know how much I really appreciate your support of this channel. Watching it grow in literally the last 2 months, 2.5 months, has been amazing. So, thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing and viewing and liking and commenting. It's awesome. So thank you. Okay, so okay, so we're like a day or two after the G7. I guess a day just feels like longer. And I thought I would take a quick look and see sort of how other leaders are viewing the whole G7 and maybe even leaders who weren't at the G7, but people from other countries who were watching what was going on. Just want to see sort of the aftermath of that and whether that aftermath is international or kind of local to the United States. I thought it would be an interesting thing to take a look at and see how we're doing. So come on down and let's get at this. Okay. So, we want to see what the after effects are of the G7. I have a question. After effects G7, after effects G7, after effects G7. I'm going to push you back a bit. There we go. Okay. Okay. Well, okay, let's start here. There is a lot of concern, I would even say worry, about Trump's mental state, his physical state. The other leaders at the G7 are looking at him. And, in some ways, especially this G7, they sort of viewed him as Uncle Donnie, who's kind of, becoming really confused. And you sort of have to humor him as opposed to listen with any seriousness to what he has to say. Because you start to realize that Uncle Donnie is living in perhaps a little bit of a world that doesn't actually exist on this planet. So there was concern, there was worry, there was humor almost, because he is just so unprepared to acknowledge reality as reality exists. And he's a tremendous worry, okay, because he's now viewed as so erratic. He is viewed not only as a clear and present danger to the United States, he is pretty much viewed as a clear and present danger to the planet, to other countries, to ally countries. So there is a significant amount of concern going on. And, the more he yakety yaks about Putin and how, Putin needs to be invited back and G8, and it needs Putin. The more he does that, the more red flags go up, because it not only means, it means one of two things, right? It means either he literally doesn't basically understand geography and country sovereignty, and he just, thinks that, Crimea should have gone to Russia, and what's the problem? Or worse, he is so, he's in a position where he owes Putin so much that even if he has to look like a complete fool to the rest of the world, he will continue singing that tune. Either one is a little scary, okay? um, so this is kind of the sad thing. G7s can be really, really helpful, informative globally, because you get that group of allies who are strong and who are supporting each other, and you're together, you're coming up with ideas, you're problem solving, you're creating alliances that are stronger, that work for you. And it seems now with Trump that they're getting stuff done, but it's sort of like there isn't really, I almost want to say there really isn't a sense of satisfaction. It's it's kind of it's kind of, if y'all can remember, when we wrote really serious, intense exams, and when it was over, instead of that feeling of elation, you just had that feeling of, oh my God, thank God that is over. And that's kind of like what the other leaders of the G7, that feeling that they came away with. Because things that it should have been an easy, unanimous situation, he's throwing a wrench in every time they turn around. And it wouldn't be so scary or so bad if the wrench he threw made any kind of sense to anybody ever, somewhere. And it just doesn't, right? So again, they're back in that position of almost like trying to humor the guy. And the aides and people around him are talking to their counterparts from other governments, and they're basically hearing the same story over and over again, which is, we don't trust him. We don't think he's actually all there. He is so not equipped to be in the position he is. Your country, read the Republicans, are doing nothing to try to rein him in and harness him. So why should we continue to extend the same courtesies that would have been extended even 5 years ago? He sullies the country, your country. He sullies these joint meetings. It's like he leaves a big smudge everywhere he goes. And nobody seems to be wanting to stop it. So countries are looking at that and saying, well, interesting that the people of the country have the will to make changes, but the people in actual positions right now to bring this situation under control are completely unprepared to do that. There is no sense of trying to achieve balance, not mental balance nor physical balance. There's just this sense of this careening kind of person who's all over the map, and nobody is going to give him, help him to right himself or stop the forward motion. And why? Well, because everybody is so interested in getting what they can get for their back pockets. They're going to take what they can take while the getting's good. They are not going to be concerned about moral issues because, the writing's kind of on the wall. And despite their spin, the Republicans are not looking good going into the next election. For a while there, it was like, okay, well, you probably get the House, or you have the House, you'll probably get the White House. But yeah, you know what? The Senate is still off limits. It's not going to happen. And just in the last couple of weeks, there has been more and more talk about, actually the Senate could be in reach for the Democrats. So the Republicans are starting to recognize the fact that, we're not going to come out of this really well. So we better get while the getting's good, because pretty soon we're not going to be in a power or in a place to control the rules, and there's going to be judgment on us. So let's get what we can get, because money, because that tap may get turned off, and we don't want that to happen. It is absolutely outrageous that Trump thinks that he should hold the G7 next year, probably for sure wanting to invite Putin, at that club in Florida, the Doral or whatever its name is. It's outrageous. And somebody needs to pull him back and say, no, this is going to look so bad in 100 different ways. And, maybe somebody will casually say that to him. I would be very surprised if there wasn't a real push for him to attempt to get it done. And a lot of people standing around with their thumbs up their nose and their fingers in their pockets saying, yeah, well, probably not a good idea. But as this gets closer and closer, as you go into sort of the summer, I want to say, of 2020, when the election is so close, he may end up changing venues. And of course, what he will say was, I was just joking. All right. Okay. Well, it's not looking so good for the guy. You've got the 9 of Wands, you've got the 10 of Swords, and you have the Death card. So what is that telling us? Well, he's defensive and he's reacting out as like a caged animal, right? He's constantly pushing back and pushing back. He's in defensive mode. There are going to start being attacks that get to him. So, is McGahn going to be told by the courts that he has to testify to the committees? If McGahn has to do that, there is a whole long list of other people who Trump is saying should not and will not testify because, of this magical privilege that he has. And when the courts start ruling against him and things like that, they're going to be like a knife in his back, because the people that the committees want to testify, no, they have a lot of stuff on him, right? So that's going to be a problem. The polls are continuing to show him underwater everywhere. His approval rating is decreasing every day. The disapproval is growing and growing. The Democratic base is energized and ready to vote blue all the way down the ticket. So stuff is starting to come back on him. And let us not forget, more than, 12 investigations coming out of the Southern District of New York. So you know what? He's got a lot on his plate. And ultimately, it's going to bring him down. I wish I could tell you that it will happen on this date or this date, and I can't. All I can tell you is that things are going to, from now going forward, are going to get increasingly tumultuous. There's too many investigations going on. There's too many people who are going to be told they have to testify. There's too much unrest and upheaval. And he's not going to handle it well. He's not. Mentally and physically, he is not in good shape. And I don't really see how he's going to be able to sort of sustain the crazy. I gotta say, I'm continually with him concerned about head issues and heart issues. And when I say head, I'm not referring to the mental or the apparent mental instability. I'm actually thinking like stroke, aneurysm, that kind of thing, and of course the heart. So, does he get really, really sick and have to leave office? Well, possibly. Does he get impeached and thrown out of office? Well, possibly. Does he make it all the way to the next election and then lose? Possibly. There's just not a clear answer yet. And God knows I wish I could give it to you, but there isn't. Because, there's people around him who, while they can't necessarily control him, can maneuver him. So people with brains, okay, not a lot, but they've got some brains, they've got some strategies, and they can kind of guide him. You've got information coming, you've got emotions being riled up. I'm sorry, there is not clarity at this point. There is for sure a promise that he will not be in office going forward. There is a promise that this episode in his life is going to drag on and on and on, and there will continue to be death by 1,000 cuts, because there's so much yuck that has been unearthed that he's not going to escape it now. He made the mistake of going public. He made the mistake of putting himself on a big enough stage that he was going to be scrutinized. And because he had always managed to spin things before, he was completely unprepared for the fact that, oh, you know what, when you're president, people really, really pay attention. Not only to what you say and not only looking at you at your dumbass parades, but your day-to-day dealings, the things you say, the things you don't say, what business relationships you have, what countries you're, too friendly with that maybe you shouldn't be friendly with. He just sort of thought, well, all my life I've been able to distract, and so I should be able to distract the entire U.S. government, the entire United States population. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm going to distract a whole bunch of allies of mine too. Okay, so that didn't work for him. And so there's just, again, this is my trump card. He just continues to play the fool, and there will come a point in time where, it's gonna come to an end. So interesting. We've got the 2 and the 3 of Cups. And both of those tend to be, good cards, celebratory cards, a coming together card. So what is that telling us? Okay, it's telling us that there will be a coming together of groupings of people who are currently and are going to continue to work together in unity with strategy to create the Tower and the Death card, right? To create that fall and then that complete ending. And it's not just an ending to the presidency, right? It's an ending to whatever prestige he thinks he has. It's an ending to whatever reputation he still believes he has. It is an ending to the kind of cruelty, not only as a private citizen, but of course as president. There's going to be an ending to the way of life he knew, not only as president, but before, into this very different kind of existence where literally he's going to call newspapers to tell them stories, and they're not even going to run the articles. He just will have no sort of redeeming value going forward, because this has gone beyond, a guy. He's kind of a salesman, and he kind of likes to embellish. This has gone so far beyond that. This has gotten to pathological liar who actually does not know the truth about pretty much anything. And there's going to be strength in the numbers that come together and work to create that change. And then, of course, we have the 5 of Pentacles. So, right here, you've got Death, the Tower, the 5 of Pentacles, all happening to the Fool. So he is going to get ostracized more and more. I mean, that's exactly what happened at the G7, right? I mean, he was completely sort of pushed to the side, and people let it be known, you really don't have anything that you're going to say that we actually agree with or frankly want to waste our time listening to. It's going to continue to cause, things just falling apart. And that is ultimately, one way or another, going to ultimately contribute to and lead to this ending where he loses everything there is to lose. Yeah. The United States is trying so hard to rebalance things. Allies are trying very hard to rebalance things and have kind of come to a conclusion that in some ways you just have to ride out the storm, right? You just have to ride out the crazy that's going on around you and recognize that he is a false leader and he is not equipped for the job. And so, like I said, he's treated like Uncle Donnie, who's kind of losing a little bit of his grip on what is and isn't. So, I guess in conclusion, we have the G7 resulting in allied countries having a much clearer witnessing a much clearer example of the deterioration in Trump mentally, physically, emotionally. So, countries that were sort of watching from the sidelines or hadn't been in contact with Trump, recently just were seeing things. They sort of in their face got an example of kind of where he's at. And so they will, protect themselves accordingly. We have a continued deterioration of the months and weeks going forward because he is going to be resistant to anything that indicates that he might be getting bad news. And unfortunately, yeah, he's going to be getting, some bad news. So hang in there. All is not lost because there are enough countries, there are enough people who see the truth of what he is and the truth of what your country is going through and recognize the unbelievable damage he is creating. I mean, climate-wise, economically, to trade agreements. The list goes on and on. So you're not in this alone, even though I'm very sure that very often it does feel like you are in this alone. But you're not. All right, so thank you once again for taking the time to join me. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, take care, be well, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.